Is life unfair? I'll be discussing this topic. I had a conversation recently. I'll be giving some insights on it. Also, this is meant to give you an opportunity. There's at least 2 opportunities in this story for you to use and apply your spiritual discernment and see if you can catch the lesson before I present it. And at the end, I'm actually going to use the perspective of consciousness to validate what's happening here. All right, welcome to my favorite YouTube channel. Fun with life, right? Fun with life. Okay, so in a discussion that I was having, a person was going somewhere with their daughter, and their daughter wanted to drive. And in this situation, they were choosing not to have their daughter drive. And their daughter was expressing some sort of a resistant response to that. And the parent was saying, life isn't fair. And the moral of the lesson from their perspective was to help their child understand that life isn't fair. Okay? And then they went on to say, when you understand that you're in these situations and life isn't fair, remember me as a parent, how I'm going through things and how life isn't fair for me as well. Okay? So they're encouraging their child to see things through a filter of life not being fair, and then also when they're experiencing that perception of unfair life, to remember how that the parent is actually experiencing an unfair life. Unfair experiences within life, we should say. Okay, so that's the crux of the story right there. Did you happen to catch anything? Did you happen to catch anything? Did you happen to catch any responses that could be refined out that are responsible for stress rather than liberation? It is the affirmation and the affirming that life isn't fair, encouraging somebody to have that perspective in the first place. And the next error is encouraging a daughter who's having a perceived unfair experience, encouraging them then to think of us as a parent and now projecting that unfairness our way. If we understand that prayers work and thoughts are energy and thoughts are creation, we wouldn't want somebody else, whenever they're going through something that they're misperceiving as unfair, to now throw a negative prayer our way. Source, God calls it a reverse prayer. We wouldn't want them to throw a reverse prayer our way just out of shrapnel because of their misunderstanding of this life being unfair, right? So just because the daughter's in an unfair experience, she shouldn't be encouraged to use her mind to now think about how the parent is having an unfair experience too, because that's just reverse prayering. It's a curse in a manner, cursing the parent. You know what I mean? If we understand that thoughts are things, thoughts precede creation, what are we doing here, right? Cool. Okay, now we're going to look at things from a perspective of consciousness. Is life fair? So when we understand that consciousness actually is the life within us, consciousness is the piece of us that when we astral travel leaves the body and we remain completely complete. When we have a near-death experience, we've once again left the physicality. We're just there as consciousness, experiencing everything as consciousness. When we're dreaming, we're experiencing everything from this perspective, once again, of consciousness. Right now, in your physical waking moment, we call it a physical reality, but it's actually your consciousness that's allowing you to have this experience. It's not your thumb. It's not your toe. It's not your lip. It's not your ears. It's not your eye. It's your consciousness that's allowing for this experience. So consciousness itself is the life. So is life unfair? Okay, now we're going to look at the nature of creation as I've been given it from source, from God, from the universe, the omniscient understanding, right? If you think a sad thought and you consent to that sad thought, you're identifying with that sad thought, you now create sadness. So if you think a sad thought, agree with it, you create sadness. You create the experience of sadness. If you think a sad thought and you repent that sad thought, you don't identify with it, you surrender it, you let go identifying with it, the sadness is not created. You don't experience the sadness because you've repented it. Consent and repent. Remember those two. They're helpful. Okay? So if you think that life is unfair and you consent to it, what are you manifesting? If you think that life is unfair and you repent it, What are you manifesting? This is karma 101. Okay, those who don't believe in karma haven't examined their consciousness sufficiently, the nature of their consciousness. It doesn't just work with sadness, it works with everything. And it is perfect. It's perfectly fair. If you think a sad thought and you consent to it, it's only fair that you experience sadness. If you think a sad thought and you repent it, it's only fair that you don't experience sadness. And that's exactly the way it works. So life, from the perspective of consciousness, is actually perfectly fair. Perfectly just. If you fake a sad thought and you consent to it, you experience the perfect expression of that fakeness. Okay? Thought precedes creation, but we have the opportunity to consent and repent it. And this is our work. Being mindful of what we're consenting to, being mindful of what we're repenting, considering things from the perspective not as a human, because we are not human. And when we make the mistake of us being human, we're oftentimes missing out on how we can change these things from the perspective of that which we truly are, that being consciousness. So, it's interesting that even a little discussion like this shows opportunities for refinement, opportunities for growth, opportunities for transformation, and it's also validating why we might be having some of the experiences that we are having in the form of suffering. Okay? These are little examples, however, they change our life. All right? When I'm doing the spiritual guidance with somebody, this is what we're looking at. We're seeing where's a person's hang-ups, where's a person's triggers, where's a person's traumas, and what is their response to those. If we adjust our response, the repenting, the consenting, sometimes it might take a little bit of a more like a spiritual understanding in order to transcend it too. But that's what we're doing. We're looking at these hang-ups in life, these hang-ups from spiritual advancement and transformation, and seeing what are the obstacles that we're consenting to. Okay? What are we choosing to put in our way of peace? What is the obstacle that we are consenting to that's creating a bondage where otherwise we would be experiencing liberation and peace and harmony and love? All right? So, from that perspective, is life fair? I would say it's perfectly fair. And our mindset has a huge influence on it. This is the same thing as why do bad things happen to good people? Well, what's going on in those good people's minds, right? What are they consenting to? What are they using their consciousness to consent to, right? Now, a remedy for this idea of life being unfair is really simple and straightforward. Use your mind deliberately and intentionally to replace that idea of life being unfair with life being easy and blessed and miraculous. How about that? Doesn't that feel better? Now, in the moments, things might not shift the way that we would hope. However, our work in understanding how consciousness works is to use our mind deliberately and start to plant these seeds to influence our experience moving forward. Okay? It's not a race. However, we have to start somewhere, and the idea is to start right now in this moment. So we'll leave it there. I'm an awareness guide, or a guide to conscious awareness, and I guide people to freedom from emotional pain by showing them how to use pure awareness to transform suffering into peace. Contact if inspired. Love to you, my friend.